Have you ever sat down to start a test and as soon as you see it, it seems to become a different language? Or when you are giving a speech, you just completely blank on what you are going to say? Experiencing terms such as choking, brain freeze, nerves, and jitters are all too familiar with students. Scientists thought for decades that they understood what was happening in the brain during a test or a battlefront situation. They believed it could be blamed on the hypothalamus, an evolutionary ancient structure at the base of the brain that would react to stress by releasing hormones from the pituitary gland and adrenal glands that would increase the heart rate. Now research is showing that the prefrontal cortex may be to blame. Behind our forehead, it is the control center of the most important cognition abilities when it comes to stress, such as concentration, decision-making, and the ability to retrieve memories. These are all pretty important when you're taking an exam, right? When things are going good in the prefrontal cortex, it keeps our impulses and emotions in check, but when uncontrollable stress is introduced, it loses all control, literally. By setting off chemical reactions, it hands over the controls to older parts of the brain, which can cause paralyzing anxiety or loss of control over impulses we usually keep under control, such as eating or going on a shopping spree. In simpler terms, we lose it. This has drawn scientists to want to study the effects of the stress on the brain, but also on ways how to treat it.
The prefrontal cortex is the most highly developed brain region. It's proportionally bigger in humans than our primates and is one-third of the human cortex. The prefrontal cortex matures more slowly than the other brain regions and does not fully mature until after the teenage years. The prefrontal cortex allows us to concentrate, and it is a part of our working memory where we temporarily store information.
The prefrontal cortex is the executive of the brain that works through a widespread network of connections. It sends out connections to more distant parts of the brain that control emotions, desires, and habits. The network works smoothly while unstressed. However, when we get stressed, small changes in the neurochemical environment of our brains will instantly weaken those network connections. When stressed, the brain gets filled with the arousal chemicals norepinephrine and dopamine. The elevation of these levels shuts down neuron firing and network activity diminishes, as well as the ability to regulate behavior. The amygdala is responsible for emotions, survival instincts, and memory. When stressed and exposed to norepinephrine and cortisol, the amygdala alerts the rest of the nervous system to prepare for danger. At this point, memories related to fear are strengthened. Some may be more vulnerable to stress due to genetic makeup and previous history of stress exposure. Gender also affects how we react to stress. Estrogen may amplify sensitivity to stress in women, and in men, stress plays a more important role in intensifying cravings and causing habitual behaviors mediated by a structure called the basal ganglia. When exposed to stress, we lose the emotional regulation of the prefrontal cortex, which results in compulsive behaviors and emotional responses.
The school have you stressed out to the max. I'm here to share some helpful tips on how to be a stress-free college student. Start by buying a planner. Buying a planner can help you keep up with your day and have that peace of mind that you will not forget about that English paper that is due next week. Make sure to keep your room free of clutter. The less clutter in your room, the less clutter in your brain. Another important tip is to look presentable. We all know how hard it is to get up for that class at 8 a.m., let alone look halfway decent. But studies show students who feel more put together stay more focused in class and take neater notes. Dr. J. David Forbes has some more tips on how to live a college stress-free life. Dr. Forbes says we need about an adequate amount of sleep every night, about 7 to 9 hours. If we do not get our sleep, it may cause more stressors such as obesity, depression, and diabetes. Eating well is just as important as getting enough sleep. Eating junk food and drinking sodas and energy drinks for a quick pick-me-up can cause more harm than good. It leaves us crashing after the sugar's digested and wanting more. College is a very stressful environment for young students coming in and returning students. Between trying to make good grades and living a normal life, we need to keep our brains healthy as possible. Reducing the amount of stress that we deal with on a daily basis will help keep it that way. Now that you have all this useful information, go apply it to your life and be a stress-free college student.